The views and opinions expressed on this podcast is solely of the creator and may not necessarily reflect the views, thoughts, or opinions of the listener. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. ChatGPTs and AI technologies were not used or harmed in the creation of this podcast. It is 100% human-made by me, your host. Hi, hello. My name is Melanie, and this is Under the Moon Paranormal Presents Ohio Legends, a podcast about the Buckeye State and all the creepy and weird stuff that happens in and surrounding it, as well as some notable, interesting people that you have either were born here, resided here, or died here. So that's what this episode's gonna be a little bit about. I wanted to do a whole big episode about this, where it's the tale of two women. Okay, one was born in England, one was born in Kentucky. One claimed to be royalty, one didn't. But one has a whole town named after her, and the other one has a small little plot in a very rural town or village. I guess it's a village, or maybe it's even smaller, maybe it's a community called South Salem, Ohio, in Ross County. So this is like a throwback to the Ross County episode where I did like multiple topics for one episode. I want to focus on this particular story because a shout out to Angela Simmons, a vlogger and a writer. She found some things and we did some digging on our own, and I'm going to talk about it today. So this will be part one. Part two, we'll get to that at the end of the episode. But right now, this episode is brought to you by this month's full pink moon. Okay, so on June 11th, a full moon occurs in the sign of Sagittarius, and it brings awareness to our lives, particularly in areas that require more balance. This lunation reminds us of the need to reach out beyond our usual routines. Push the envelope. Do something different. If it's not working, try something else. So, you know your patterns, your neighborhoods, your friends, your coworkers. The full moon in Sagittarius is a time of expansion. As such, we should be especially aware of what we would like to promote at this time. Try to put aside or put our minds to those things that won't serve us, and if it's a blown out of proportion, then it's gotta go, okay? The full moon harmonizes with Mars, bringing a sense that if we put some of our effort into our pursuits, we'll get results. It's a strong influence for energy and motivation, okay? So, that occurs on June, the full moon. Always manifest your dreams. Always. Especially during the new moon, so you can see it brought to life during the full moon, okay? I have a YouTube channel called Under the Moon Paranormal. And if you want me to read one of your stories here on this podcast, make sure you email me at underthemoonparapod@gmail.com and I'll read your story. If it's a really, really juicy, spooky story that gives me goosebumps, I'm saving it for our listener extravaganza episode in October. Okay, so let's talk about Mary Morter. Now, growing up in South Salem, Ohio, there's a little cemetery that's right next to the school there. And it used to be like an academy for young adults, teenagers and stuff. And anyway, it was an academy in the 1920s, 1940s, 1950s, 1960s. And then in the 80s, it went from being an academy to like an elementary school all the way up till 8th grade. But when I got there, it was just for the year I got there. It was the last year for 8th grade students. And then it just went down from kindergarten to 5th grade. But kindergarten through 5th grade, I have always heard this same story about Mary Morter. Okay. So, I'm going to read to you what this following thing says about the story of Mary Morter. Okay. All right. So this is exactly what all my teachers have told me. And at the end of the school year, we'd always go visit her grave. It's the only it's a tiny little headstone, okay? Because, they said she's the princess of South Salem for years. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's dive into this, okay? Because I have reasons to believe she lied about being a princess. Let's find out together. From Kensington Palace in London, England, to a small frame house in the hamlet in Ohio, Southland, called South Salem, reflected quite a remarkable contrast in lifestyles. I have an idea. So before we get into the story, let me show you something here. Can you see it? There it is. Okay. This is a Flux 2 response device, and it has a red light and a green light on it. And it's like an EMF detector from which side. You can use it to ask yes or no questions, I guess. The cicadas are out really, really bad right now, so I can't do any like on the scene ghost hunting in cemeteries. I was going to go visit Mary Morter and Jeffrey Lundgren this weekend, but the cicadas are too loud. So I'm going to turn this on and I'm going to put it in front of me behind my camera. And you should be able to hear a beep. If it beeps, we'll see. We'll see if they like the story. So let me pause this real quick. Okay, so we got the ghost equipment set up. If they like it, they'll say yeah with the green. If they don't like what I'm saying, they'll say no with the red. Okay, we'll see what happens. So from Kensington Palace to London, okay, to a small little town in southern Ohio called South Salem. Different contrasts in lifestyles, but one was born with dignity and grace by an older sister named Queen Victoria. So that's her claim to fame, is that she is the half-sister of Queen Victoria. So her name is Mary, the daughter of the Duke of Kent, the granddaughter of King George III, whose reign to American colonists revolted and successfully fought for their independence. Following the death of King George III in 1820, his eldest son succeeded to the throne and reigned as king for only 10 short years before his death in 1830, leaving no heirs. The throne passed by to his younger brother William, who was then occupied the throne even less time, dying in 1837. 1830 to 1837, not too much long, not too long to be king. He too had no heirs, and the crown was then passed to the family of the youngest brother Edward, who had died in 1820. Edward had been twice married, and by his first wife had fathered Mary. Edward had been married twice by his first wife and fathered Mary. Well, that's not what I found out according to genealogy searches. Let's get into it. But here's the story that they told us in school. Okay. By all rights, upon death by her uncle, King William, Mary would have ascended to the throne, becoming Queen of the United Kingdom, of Great Britain and Ireland, and Empress of India. A lot of title, honey. But alas, Mary, who had been born in March of 1818, had committed the unforgivable sin of European royalty. She had married a commoner. And because she had joined the holy wedlock of not one royal bloodlines, but by the time her uncle's death in 1837, she had already been disinherited by and shunned by her royal relatives. And thus it occurred the right to the throne fell to her younger sister, Victoria. It's saying her younger sister, Victoria. Okay. Who has been born less than 2 years after Mary to Edward and his second wife, Victoria Maria Louisa, a sister of King Leopold of Belgium. Queen Victoria's reign from 1837 until her death in 1901, and was the longest in British history and chiefly remembered as one of peace and prosperity. So, that is supposedly some of the history to her royal bloodline. Okay, so here is the story of Mary Morter, and I'm going to put in my 2 cents from this point on, because that's like supposedly the history. But let me go back and tell you what I found. Okay, so Mary followed her heart to a life of hard work and living her last days in a small town thousands of miles and an ocean away from her native land of Britain. So she could have led a much more pampered and luxurious existence. Although she was highly educated and primed for the role of queen, young Mary fell in love with Blythe Jagward Morter. We'll call him BJ from here on out. Okay, so a stonemason by trade, details of their love story are now lost to memory, and it could be presumed that the couple met when Morter was employed to work on the palace grounds where Mary lived. Blue Bloods live their secluded lives, and it's hard to imagine how else Mary could have gotten to know a day laborer so well she fell in love with him. Despite the chance that she might someday fall to the throne, her love for BJ Morter overcame any desires that she may have harbored for power and fame. So BJ had it going on. She was hot for BJ. Whatever happened, and when only 18 years of age, she set sail on her airship, received a small dowry from her family, and was ostracized from the royal house of Hanover. Less than 2 years passed before her uncle William died and her sister Victoria was crowned queen. So just how long Mary and BJ remained in England, I think it was a few years after they got married, and when Victoria was crowned queen. So they just had this decision to move to America. Okay. The family tradition relates to record that now this is all true because her kids, BJ's kids, their bloodlines is what helped me find the truth. So BJ left Mary and their several children and traveled to the United States first to find a suitable home in their new country. What attracted to Mr. Morter to the South Salem area in Ohio is yet another one of those questions of which family history and local folklore has failed to answer. But there is a good possibility that perhaps a relative or a close friend had already settled in this part of southern Ohio and had written to Mary and BJ about the fertile land. I mean, it was back then. It was very fertile. It wasn't theirs to take, though. BJ Morter found his way to South Salem, so he bought a small lot that was really close to the academy, like a stone's throw away. You used to be able to see it from the school and the cemetery. Okay, so it was 8 years after the academy was built was when BJ found his lot of land, and then contracted with local carpenters to erect a modest frame house. Suitable for his wife and children. Once the home was under construction, Morter wrote to Mary she should leave for America and he would meet her in New York City. This is where things get a little wonky, and this is all fact. This is all from the family history. But sometimes the best laid plans go awry, and BJ's family did not show up when expected. When this occurred, he became alarmed and he freaked out and set back sail to England. But Mary had received her husband's letter and made the necessary preparations to leave her native land. It simply took longer than BJ expected. In the iconic twist of circumstances, he was sailing east across the Atlantic for the British Isles, and Mary and the 6 children were crossing to go to America at the same time. They kind of their ships kind of passed each other. So, an almost penniless Mary Morter exhibited courage and resources when she showed up in New York City and didn't find her husband. And I assume this is where she started saying, I am Queen Victoria's half-sister. She was becoming resourceful, and she made her way through New York City with room and board for her and her 6 kids by making lace and crocheting things. And it said that she managed to find work and pay for her room and board. She utilized her talents of making lace and crocheting skills she had quite possibly learned as a young girl being raised in a much refined royal society, is what these American folk was saying. So thus, she was probably like, oh yeah, I'm Queen Victoria's half-sister. I'm royal blood. So that kind of got her nicer rooms in New York City. You see where this is going. Okay, so when BJ Morter returned from England, the family began their adventurous trek overland from New York to Ohio in a traveling stagecoach. Upon arriving in South Salem, the Morters discovered that their house was not completed. I mean, they were not royal, and it was a modest frame house. Let's just see where that goes, okay? So, some of the windows were not yet installed, and much of the fresh plaster inside the house was still wet. But having nowhere else to live, the family moved in and made the best of it. But the long trip across the sea and several weeks working in New York City had the rough inland travel to Ohio finally moved into what had been a damp, drafty house proved to be too much for the 33-year-old mother. Not long after moving to South Salem, Mary developed a very bad cold, and in her already weakened condition, she contracted tuberculosis. Now, in this time period, tuberculosis was really scary to get. So remember that. So she got tuberculosis just a few weeks after moving in, living in an age where tuberculosis was poorly understood and medical techniques were primitive at best. Go back to the Waverly Hills episode and I'll teach you all about tuberculosis. The young wife and mother was doomed. Doomed, people. She was doomed. The following spring, on April 16th, 1852, Mary Morter passed away and was interred in the village cemetery within sight of her little home. So her little plot overlooked her tiny little home. She had surrendered her hope of becoming queen, and when she married the commoner, she was subsequently surrendered her life and sought a happier existence for her family in a foreign land far from Kensington Palace in London. Skilled as a stone's mason, BJ Morter carved his wife's tombstone, and it is a fairly small headstone with a simple design. Put it right here for you. However, close to the bottom of the sandstone tablet near the grass line, Morter carved an interesting one-word inscription. Just think. Precisely what he wanted passerbys to contemplate after reading his inscription is not known, but perhaps he was hoping they would reflect on his noble wife's momentous decision, which changed her life's course from one of luxury, power, and fame to one of obscurity, hardship, and a really short lifespan. Now, that's so sad that she was only like 34, 33 years old when she died. So, her maiden name is Mary Ann Harrison. March 12, 1818, North Walsham, Norfolk, England, and she was baptized a few months before she passed away at the Buckskin Presbyterian Church, which the church is still standing. Her house, however, isn't standing no more, and she's buried in the South Salem Cemetery, aged 34 years old. Her parents are Samuel Harrison and Elizabeth Cozens. Elizabeth Cozens is her mother, okay? So she has her children. She was married May 28th, 1938 in Middlesex County, England to B.J. or Blythe Jaguar Morter with his and her children, Mariah, William, Thomas, Alfred, Elizabeth Harrison Morter, interesting, and Emily Harriet Morter. So Mariah is the one that didn't come with them. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kids altogether that they had. And her list of siblings does not mention Victoria's. Okay, her siblings are Louisa Harrison, who is older than Mary, and then there's Mary Ann Harrison, Samuel Harrison, Elizabeth Harrison, Mariah Harrison, James Harrison, Thomas Harrison, and Ruth Harrison. It does not mention the Duke of Kent or Victoria at all. I'm going to click on Samuel Harrison, who is her father, and he was born in 1791, Ashlam, Norfolk, England. If I'm mispronouncing this, I'm sorry. Deceased after 1871, he was a husbandman, one who would cultivate grounds, a man in a low position of dairyman, gardener, agricultural laborer, milkman, or Norwich. So he did live within the castle. This family did live within the kingdom, or whatever you want to call it, for the commoner people, the people that worked for the royals. So she did grow up in this castle. So I'm going to look up her mother, Elizabeth Cozens, and see about spouses and children. It just says that they were married on Halloween 1815 to Samuel Harrison, and they have the same kids that I listed from before. So yeah. So we're going to go back to Mary Ann. I'm going to put this family tree thing in here so that you guys can like see it too. All right. Oh, notes. I'm looking through the notes here real quick. Okay, looking through the notes on this, and I'm going to provide a link to this family tree thing, and go to the bottom and look at all the notes. So it says, even her stone reads Queen Victoria's half-sister, which I think is really fucking weird. March 20th, 1851, at a meeting to consider raising or borrowing money for immigration of the poor, the meeting adjourned around Thursday the 27th, instant 11 o'clock. There's a whole bunch of names of all these old people, and it says Mary Ann Morter and her family resolved to raise the sum of $120 as a fund for defraying the expenses of the immigration of poor persons having settlements in this parish, being willing to immigrate, to be paid out by the rates raised or raised to relieve the poor in this parish, to be applied such under rate orders and regulations as poor law commissioners shall on that behalf direct. Signed by Thomas Dry. So it sounds like she helped raise money for the poor in South Salem. And then it says on here, there's a note, I am afraid that I can offer no further help regarding when Mary Ann Morter left North Walsham or the port she departed from or the ship she sailed. Neither do we have any records of departure of B.J. Morter. However, I have traced 2 original entries in the Vestry Minute Book of North Walsham, some details of which I first sent you on August 27th. So there is, yeah. Extract from Vestry Meeting, March 1851, and it does say Mary Ann Morter and her family, immigration copy. So they have a paper trail from poor persons immigration settlements to parish from a port in England to New York. So there is a paper trail of that, but it's coming up as they're poor, So that's pretty interesting. And then at the very end, it has a family tree for her mom and her dad, and her grandparents are James Cozens and Mary Kemp from her mom. Her dad's family tree kind of ends with her dad. So we don't know his family. And if he was royal, like they claim, he would have more detail. So claiming that her father is the Duke of Kent, let's go Wikipedia him real quick, huh? So let's put a picture of him right here. He's classy looking, isn't he? Okay. So I'm going to go down to marriage. Okay. Charlotte of Wales, November 1817. The only legitimate grandchild of George III at the time the royal succession took place. So he was estranged from their wives and had no surviving legitimate children at that time, because then it goes to Princess Victoria of Saxe-Coburg, Salfield. For this part of Duke of Kent, age 50, he was already considering marriage. He became engaged to Princess Victoria, who had been the sister-in-law of his now deceased niece, Princess Charlotte. The royal bloodline's really weird. If anybody can help me, Angela, where are you? So, Princess Charlotte. Princess Charlotte was the only legitimate grandchild of King George III. Okay. So it was his younger brother's daughter. So he turned 50 after the death of his younger brother's daughter. So he didn't have any other children, except for, when he met Princess Victoria. They were married on May 29th, 1818. Okay, so if they were married May 20, 1818. So Mary Morter was born in 1818. Mary Morter was born March 12th, 1818, and he got married to Princess Victoria on May 29th, 1818. So there's no freaking way that this was her father, okay? Again, so Princess Victoria was the daughter of Franz Duke Saxe-Coburg and sister of Prince Leopold. All right. So the recently deceased Princess Charlotte, really the husband of her, was her first husband. So Princess Charlotte, she was getting up there, and then she passed away. So they need a new heir, right? No more heirs. They need more kids in this bloodline. So, all right. So the issue with this union is they had one child. Alexandria Victoria was Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland from June 20th, 1837 until her death in January of 1901. Her reign of 63 years and 216 days, which was longer than most of any of those predecessors. It's constituted the Victorian era. So, yeah, she was a long-running queen. She was born May 24th, 1819, and Mary Morter was born when? March 12th, 1818. So, it's not possible. It's really not possible. He was 51 years old at the time of her birth, and the Duke took great pride in his daughter, telling his friends she would be queen of the United Kingdom one day, is what he would tell his friends. But the Duke of Kent, he did have a lot of mistresses, because if you go Wikipedia him, there's a whole section dedicated to his mistresses, but none of them are Elizabeth Cozens. Not a single one of the mistresses here is Elizabeth Cozens. And if Elizabeth Cozens gave birth to Mary Harrison, and it was supposedly she was a mistress of the Duke of Kent, she would be listed in this Wikipedia because of the ties to South Salem Cemetery and the legend that they've been telling us for like 100 years. Yeah, he had no children with these mistresses. And one brought up in a son named Timothy. His father promised him a post in the UK service. In 1909, he was appointed clerk in Foreign Office, being retired with a pension of 1826 when his half-sister Victoria became queen in 1837. When his English wife, Harriet Boyne, had returned to Geneva, where he died in 1853, he had no children. So there is a half-brother that they mention, but they don't mention Mary Morter in this at all. All right. So I don't think Mary Morter was British royalty. I think she made it up when she was stuck in New York City to help her and her 6 kids get better room and board. So, I want to talk a little bit about B.J. Morter. Let me put this little article right here, and it says, Grainsville, Ohio, October 29th, at 2 o'clock this morning, a fire occurred at the Licking County Infirmary, situated 2 miles south of this place. The stone and frame buildings were destroyed. The former was occupied by 10 insane persons, and the fire was discovered. There was too late to rescue them. Being locked in their rooms, they all perished. The victims' names were John Devon Moses, Carol B.J. Morter. So B.J. Morter died in an insane asylum during a furnace fire. Like, what are the odds of that? So I started digging into B.J. just a little bit more. And he has an interesting family line as well. Let's see here. He got remarried. I'm going to put a link in here too. He got remarried and he had a bunch more kids. Like a bunch more kids. He got married again to someone named Maria. Let me refresh this page real quick. So yeah, he went on and got married again, had a whole bunch of kids, and then ended up in an insane asylum. So from what I've been reading after all this and doing this little searches on Queen Victoria, Victoria did have 2 half-siblings, Fedora and Coral. They were her mother's children from a previous marriage. No Mary exists in her genealogy for her generation. Most likely that people were fascinated by her British accent because it was probably really thick, and the folktale sprang up that she was related to royal family. I mean, it's a possibility that this rumor had started shortly after she died, and that's why they put it on her headstone. Who knows? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And I know it might make a lot of people upset that knows me, that went to school with me, and that we've all heard this made-up story by lots of our teachers. But yeah, it's totally fabricated, and she was British, that's for sure, but doesn't make her British royalty. Yeah, I'm going to add a link to her family tree and the Duke of Kent, so you guys can make your own assumptions. And I'm going to put a link in to her Find a Grave as well, because I like going there. And I will go there soon as the cicadas start dying down. But we have a listener submitted story for this month, and it's a Glitch in the Matrix story. I love these Glitch in the Matrix stories, so definitely keep sending those in because they're awesome. Okay, so this one is from Sarah Johnson. Okay, something glitched last night and I can't stop thinking about it. I always lock my bedroom door before sleeping. It's a habit I've had since college, even double check it before I lie down. Last night was no different. I remember locking it, twisting the knob to confirm it was secure. But around 3:12 a.m. I woke up suddenly. Not from a sound, not from a nightmare, just that strange feeling you get when someone's watching you. My room was dark and quiet. I sat up immediately and noticed it. My door was wide open. I froze. My apartment is small, there's no one else here, and I hadn't heard a single creak or no footsteps, just silence. I checked the windows and they're still locked. Nothing's missing, no sign of a break-in. But the weirdest part, I looked at my phone in the morning and my Ring camera had 7-minute recording with only static during that exact time I woke up. Just static. That's creepy. Were you abducted by aliens, you think? Or was it definitely a glitch in your pixelation in your part of the simulation? Is this all a simulation? Let me know what you think in the comments about simulation theory, glitches in the Matrix. And if you want to submit your own story, here's the email, underthemoonparapod@gmail.com, and I will read your story on an episode. So, what do you guys think about me blowing this Mary Morter thing out of the water here? Because for years, I was told that she was some British royalty that came to South Salem, and it was a fairy tale, and no, it's not. She had a cheap-ass house, she got sick, and she fucking died. The Busaby just went red. It doesn't like the story either. Wow. Okay, now I'm a little freaked out because that thing does not usually go off in my house. Can you step away from the triangle, please? Like, it's still red. Thank you. Anyway. Next month's episode is going to be part 2 of 2 interesting women. This one's not exactly in Ohio, it's in Kentucky, but my husband's related to this lady, and we just found out about how much indigenous culture my husband has in his bloodline. And I want to kind of touch the topic of how white men came in, took daughters of chiefs, and made them white wives. We're going to talk about Moonglow next month, and she has a whole city, village, community, whatever you want to call it, in Kentucky that is named after her, and she has her own burial ground. Interesting, huh? I want to tell you all about the story of Susanna Moonglow, okay? So let me know what you think in the comments about this story about Mary Morter. If you think that she's a half-sister of Queen Victoria and you still stand by it, that's on you. But I got proof that she's not. So send those stories in. Hug your babies, be kind to each other, and stay spooky.